Hi.
Hi.
My question is on sexuality and yeah. I would say instinctive impulse when I see, for example, a woman jogging, to look. Most times when I look, and also when the lady is beautiful inside also, how do I balance not getting too lost in the little play, you know? That's my question.
Okay. Thank you. I know what you mean. You may have heard of something called Tantra. It's that means basically bringing consciousness into something that is usually unconscious. For example, sexuality. I would even include other things like eating, things that tend to pull you into unconsciousness. I don't know if you've observed some people who, the moment they start eating, they become quite unconscious, relatively speaking, and then when they stop eating, there's a bit more consciousness again. They go, and then they wake up. So eating consciously would be bringing some awareness into that. Tantra is traditionally used to point to the possibility of bringing consciousness into sex, and sex starts the moment you're looking at a woman jogging. And basically what Tantra means is not to make it into a means to an end, not to look to the next moment and the one after that, the final moment of man-woman union always being orgasm. But sex starts with looking, and to be at every moment honor the moment and enjoy the moment for what it is, which is, there's nothing wrong when your body, mind, organism gets drawn to that. You know that this is happening. If you don't know that this is happening, you become the reaction, and then you are lost. But if you know that this is happening, you can actually allow yourself to be drawn. You can look and enjoy just looking. There's no need to go beyond that. Can you be... I enjoy looking at all kinds of humans, including women or men, it doesn't really matter. I enjoy the human form. I like to sometimes sit in a cafe in a corner and simply watch the human beings come in, leave. Some are old, some are young, some are beautiful, some are not so beautiful. They're all beautiful inside, but on the external, the variety of the human form is just quite wonderful to watch. And if you don't want anything, that's the question is whether the attraction turns into wanting. The attraction is the attention moves there, and it's unconscious. And then the moment comes when you realize that the attention has moved there. There's no need for you, as some spiritual traditions might tell you, you must not look at a woman. If the moment you notice your attention moving, look somewhere else. By denying it, you really intensify ultimately the unconscious urge to look. There's even in Buddhist monasteries, the monk, when I first visited a monastery, I could see a woman was trying to give a monk something, a pencil or something, and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't take it from you. You have to put it on the table, and then I'll take it. I'm not allowed to take something from a woman." And this is how, because the power of sexuality was so strong that for a long time in the past people were afraid of it, because you can't control yourself. If you even just take something, there might be a flash of energy coming. Who knows what will happen next? If you just take a pencil from a woman, what's going to happen next? So to enjoy, you can also, if you, for Tantra, you can enjoy touching someone. There's no need to, it's all really connected with the self-sufficiency of the present moment, and not always wanting the end result, and that includes any kind of sexual attraction. If you bring in present moment living into normal life, you can also practice it there, where you simply enjoy whatever phenomenon is arising at this moment for what it is, instead of it becoming some kind of wanting something in the future, wanting more. Observe the impulse, and if you get lost in it, then you have to wait until you wake up, and then can observe yourself running after her. I remember I had a friend in England many, many years ago who suddenly became very interested in spirituality and asked very deep questions. And a couple of times we were sitting somewhere outside in a park or cafe, and I was talking to him. That was my early form of teaching, individuals coming and asking questions. And I observed a couple of times he was listening to me. It was so important to him, just this vital question was being answered. And suddenly I could see him, he was looking somewhere else behind me. And I thought, what's going on? He stopped listening. And then I looked around, and there was a woman sitting there behind. And spirituality was so important for him. But then something else came up that was even more powerful at that time, and that was the attraction. And then I pointed it out, and he was like a man waking up from sleep or from a dream. He said, "Oh," it was completely lost. And then it happened again. And after that, he was able to be aware of that pull. If you're aware of that pull, you are not the pull. You are not in the grip of that pull. It's nature. The pull is part of the physical nature. But then you are not aware. If you are not aware, you become the pull. And it dominates the next thing that you do. You may run after, or you may try to approach her, or you may lose yourself in fantasizing for the next 30 minutes. All kinds of things happen. If you become the pull becomes action, or it becomes thought. So, are you the pull that you can sense, or are you the knower, the one that knows that this is happening? And if you can be the knower, you can allow yourself, or your body, your physical organism, to experience whatever is happening at this moment without losing yourself in that. It's a spiritual practice. So I recommend that you go into a place where you're likely to encounter many beautiful women. I don't know where that would be, the beach or and practice, sit there and let your attention be pulled. Wonderful practice. And the women can do it with men, or with other women, or men with men, doesn't matter. The important thing is, can you be the awareness of what's happening, or are you losing yourself in the pull? So as a practice, just be there, space for the impulse, space for the attraction, without believing that you need to change something. If you suppress it, I don't think it's the most skillful thing to do, to actually say, I must not look, because it's something will build up inside you. It will make it even more powerful. And it will not become obsessive. The awareness will deepen as you practice that. And then you have a choice. There is always a choice. It doesn't mean you cannot act. You can act from the awareness. You can still, if you want to meet someone, you can still approach her and say, I don't know what, nothing comes to mind. That's why I've never done it. It has arisen in the past, and the question, what can I say? Don't know. But you may be better at it. So anything, stay with, be the awareness rather than be what happens in it. And you can do it with any kind of appetite. If you feel pulled to eating, I'm sure you don't, but if somebody feels pulled towards eating more than the body really needs, excessively, there's always a moment when the impulse comes to eat more. And so are you able to observe the impulse, knowing that you've just had a meal an hour ago? Are you able to observe the impulse arising, or do you become the impulse, and then you don't wake up until you have halfway through the sandwich that you've taken out of the fridge, and suddenly you realize you are eating a sandwich. People have reported to me that this is what happens to them. They suddenly realize they're already halfway into a sandwich and didn't know how it even... They moved to the fridge unconsciously. The impulse was completely unconscious. And similar thing happens to people who feel the pull towards alcohol or some kind of drug. They have the drink in their hands and they didn't know how it got there. They poured... It was automatic, unconscious. So if anybody who feels a pull, an excessive pull towards certain things, can you be there as the watcher of that impulse or that pull? Then there is some freedom that comes in. You can say, yes, I choose to eat another sandwich, or I choose to follow this woman and see where she goes, or I choose to have another drink, or I choose to light a cigarette. Or you can just be with the impulse and observe how it arises. What does it feel like? Everybody knows what it feels like, a sexual feeling. What does it feel like? Isn't it? Just observe the feeling of it. Oh, interesting. Or the feeling of hunger. It's not really hunger. It's the feeling of the need for food when the body doesn't really need it, as an addictive need. What does it feel like in the body? Where does it arise? Observe it. Or the impulse to light a cigarette. Where does it... Can you be there when the first impulse comes? And the more you practice presence, the easier it is to be there as these otherwise unconscious impulses come. And then you will sometimes find that the impulse subsides when you're observing it. for a minute or two, and then you don't need to go to the fridge and eat the sandwich. Then you don't need to run after that woman. It's enough to say, oh, beautiful, and you allow her to be wonderful, and then you look at a beautiful flower. And so being the presence rather than being the reaction, the impulse, the pull that arises. Be the space for it. Make it into a spiritual practice, rather than believing that you're not spiritually advanced enough because you still feel that pull. That's not how it is. Spiritually advanced means you're there as a witness for what is arising. That's all. So, practice. There's ample opportunity, I'm sure, in your life. And find out that you can be free even as these impulses arise. You don't need to lose yourself in it. I had a great teacher in that respect, and that was my father, who passed away 2 years ago, and loved him dearly. But he, almost to the end of his life, which was the age 90, he experienced what you describe very, very strongly throughout his life. So much so that whenever he saw a woman, beautiful woman, he would be lost. He would his attention would be totally drawn, and his behavior would become unpredictable. And even when I was a child, I observed it. My mother constantly complained about it. And he was well known in the neighborhood for that. In fact, other women warned their friends that look out for this man. And so later on I realized, in addition to the sexual pull, there was something much more powerful in him. That was a psychological pull towards the female, and the psychological pull towards receiving attention from the female, because from what he told me about his childhood, he was the 7th child in a Catholic family, the 7th child, and everybody was tired of more children in the family. His mother was tired, his sisters were tired, and then the 7th child came, oh no, not another one. And then he got very little attention from his mother. The mother was exhausted. He got relatively little attention. He had all these older sisters around him, and they didn't give him that much attention either. They were living their own life. He was craving for the love of his mother, and never got it. And for the rest of his life, he craved for the attention of women, and he would do anything to get it. And that often took the form of trying to seduce women, but it never became a true, meaningful relationship, because after he had done that, he very quickly became angry, because his feeling towards women was ambivalent. The draw was there, but also great anger, because the primordial woman, the mother, had not given him what he needed. So in addition to the sexual pull, there can be in certain cases, a strong psychological pull for attention, but that may not be the case with you. But I learned a lot about people driven by unconsciousness, an otherwise very intelligent man, in many areas extremely intelligent, but complete loss of consciousness in certain areas of his life. And again, that is a subject that is interesting, and that may apply to one or two of you still, that even as presence arises very strongly in you, there may be one or two areas of your life, whenever that arises, whatever it may be, a certain kind of relationship, a certain subject matter, whenever that arises, you still revert to complete unconsciousness. Old reactive patterns happen. It could be, and it's, in some cases it's to do with sexuality for some people. In other cases it may be to do with money for some people who from an early age have had psychological issues about money never being enough, and whenever the subject comes up, you lose consciousness completely. So you could have a person who is quite present in all areas of his life, but the moment the telephone rings and on the other end this voice says, "This is your investment advisor, I have some news for you," you can see the descent into unconsciousness. What's going on? Before he was completely present. And if you know that, and you may not, perhaps only other people can tell you that that's still there in your life, listen to them. If 10 people tell you that's the case, they may be right. Then it's to become particularly alert when certain situations come up, so that you can be present as the witness, don't lose yourself in it. Okay, so next time we meet, you can give us a progress report. Thank you. Thank you.